One of the things conspiracy theorists do is they hold on to the idea that the rules, regulations, and standards that you deal with in life, like people only drive on the right side of the road, are always going to apply even if there's a hurricane. People don't follow the rules all the time. Neither do computer systems. But if you have a rigid view of reality, or if you're going to grip that with an iron fist, that's great. Now, I'm not being mean to the person making these comments. These are normal comments. But if your entire purpose when you show up to something is to say, I see something suspicious, and then when I explain to you that it isn't suspicious, you grip it tighter and scream louder, which this person doesn't appear to be doing, I'm going to keep explaining things. If someone's like, well, I think there's a monster in the basement. Well, there isn't a basement. But I think there is a basement. Well, it's not a pizza parlor either. Okay, so here we go, as people need to yell. Is this by any chance a Friday night at 11:40 p.m. with people drunk off? Yeah, it is. It felt like a Friday. Wait, so are you saying the following? No. I didn't say that. I said from what I could gather from it, this is what I can estimate. I'm not saying something happened. I'm saying this is what I can gather from the data from a file that is broken, that's over a 24-hour period of time, only holding 2 hours of data or 20 minutes of data or something like that, in an area with not very much activity in it. The claim is that any anomaly, anything weird looking, anything that I don't like must be proof of some conspiracy. Isn't something I take very seriously. But people hang on to this because discrepancies are often a way of detecting some sort of subterfuge. That's normal. But that's also the way a paranoid cop acts when they're pulling you over trying to sniff marijuana, what you are in a brand new car and have never smoked. Anything. No, really. And then you take him to court and make him explain that he can't tell the difference between marijuana and not marijuana because you deliberately had the DEA guy that he called put marijuana right there in the box. He didn't smell it. He was sitting on it. Not a brick of it, just enough of it to make sure that we could prove he couldn't smell marijuana. Literal marijuana sitting there. Did you know you can do that in a courtroom if you need to prove that someone has got no ability to smell marijuana? Officer Tomlin, Eastern Oregon, you suck. Funny thing is, I was driving without a license. They didn't bother with that. It had to be about marijuana or something. It's like, are you obsessed? Anyway, let's go on. There is no Officer Tomlin. These aren't the... Anyway, here we go. Wait, are you saying that the video was encoded at UTC -5? -6. Chicago and daylight savings? No, I'm not. 6:15 p.m.? No, I said 5:15. If it was wrong, that's fine. If it's UTC -5, that's great. But the point is that the recording was started earlier in the day, and then somewhere during the video recording, something happened on video. And unless we have an independent way of showing it, like, oh, I don't know, in the video itself, it actually stating what time and date stamp that part of the video is, we can't extrapolate backwards to find out what the timing is. And I have to warn everybody, I've had computers, and so have you, that have decided to double correct internally, twice, repetitively, ad nauseum, the time and date stamp by chopping off 2 hours or 1 hour, or adding hours and then subtracting them again. Windows and many other operating systems, including Linux, are capable of changing the timer in your computer and continually doing it in a cycle till you're going backwards in time an hour every time you turn the machine on and off. And I don't just mean that about Ubuntu that sucks a massive amount of donkey balls. I mean literally every operating system can do that, instead of being forbidden from changing the timer under any conditions unless asking. And once it hears the no, it never does it again. Seriously, you assholes who wrote Ubuntu, why did you make it automatically change the time and date stamp on the computer over and over again an hour? And on that note, if you really believe that the world is so static that a set of rules done by some arbitrary organization or a bunch of geeks writing Linux can't be wrong ever, you are new in this neighborhood. You have no idea what you're doing. Floppy hat mode. So here we go. Dark helmet. Anybody get the dark helmet joke I've been trying to do with this? How do I breathe in this? Anyway, why would the camera use UTC? The file system and the file itself use UTC. It states it's UTC. I don't know if it's accurate. Neither do you. And again, to repeat, ad nauseum, cacciatorium. This is a file that is corrupted. It's a broken file. It could have a date and timestamp error in it any way you want to. I was lucky I was able to get anything out of it. And this is a derived file. That means it's gone through conversion. I don't expect it to be accurate. The fact that it got a day correct or a year, I'm amazed at. I've seen files say that they were made in the year 1400 before. Have you done data recovery? I'm not trying to be snippy to you, but this is the kind of questions I get a lot. It's kind of annoying. It's supposed to be supposition, we expect, we assume, to be set up by whomever set up the camera. Or was it the file system, or the network timer? Or is it having its own network timer server? Or is it in the wrong neighborhood? Or did they use Microsoft's time setter or Apple's time setter, where if you're right next to some sort of time and date stamp crossover point, it might screw up. Or if it can't find the server, it'll reset the time to some other time zone accidentally. Did I mention this happens all the motherfucking time? Now, you do a data recovery on a network system. You tell me all about it. And by the way, the people who wrote Ubuntu, fuck you. Anyway, let's get on with it. It is not a camera time. Why not? According to their manual and tutorial on it, all right, was it revision 1 or revision 4? What was it updated that week or month? Did they change the software? Did it have a software glitch? Was it running on a fucking Windows machine like they always break under? When exporting as an exe file, the file is automatically named according to the start and end time and by the default name of the file according to the camera name, date, and timestamp. And the file name? If it started with an internal file name, it would name it the same? Okay. The numbers you point out then are timestamps in military time. Yes, it would use the Universal Time System, Greenwich Mean Time, UTC. And it could also get it wrong, as I pointed out. When we play back the file, the date and time displayed at the bottom should be the same as the file name. No, it isn't. Most of the files don't seem to show that characteristic. And again, it could also be file system time and date stamp. It could be arbitrary sequence numbers. It could be anything. The manual also tells you that the default behavior can be overridden by you just typing in a couple of words or just clicking the wrong checkbox. Some of the cameras, I'm not kidding, some of the cameras in that building could be set to use local time, UTC time, or another time and area. It could also try to use a time server. I've set up security systems like this. Now, this is an older system, but it's not that old, not as old as I have been working on, but I've seen all sorts of anomalies. You just trust that they're going to happen. Now, if you want to make it nice, if you want to rationalize or sane, check for sanity check, you can compare all the files to each other. How far off, not how accurate, how far off are all of them? Check the beginning, the end, and the dead middle. Are they always off by a certain amount? Make note of that file. Are they consistently off by the same amount? I would doubt it, but if they are, that's great. At least there's something kind of functional. As long as you can figure out the time and date stamps, you're good. And if you can't, you have to do actual detective works. Did somebody move from this camera position to this camera position, and then you get time and date stamps and you can coordinate them? Doesn't matter if they're right, just make sure that you keep them consistent with each other. It doesn't indicate that somebody's tampering with files or fucking with things. If I found every file on a computer security system or a video networking system that was completely accurate without any errors, I would scream the word bullshit until my head exploded. I'm sorry. The numbers you point out then are in timestamps in military time. When we play back the file, blah, 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 blah. But it's not. Motion begins at the time the file is named. No. The file time and date stamp is for when the temp file or the placeholder file was created internally. Externally, it can be named the first recording time. Next, this is done from a cache area or a temp directory where it jacks them in by saying, take this file, add file to it. Literally, it just appends it. And does it rename it every time? Is it done on a NAND-based solid-state drive where eventually, if it kept doing that, it would damage the file and couldn't change the name anymore? That could have happened too. It does not end at the file name time. Also, too, when you save the file as this file format, it comes back as a totally blank. It is playing, but there is a blank screen the whole duration. The one I got didn't have that when I just exported it as an AVI and ran it through whatever Gerberator my computer had. I was able to recover it, part of it. I was even able to get a full copy of the 20-minute or 2-hour file. I don't remember what length it was. Okay. I've tried 3 times. Why is that? Do you know? I explained it in the video. Did you watch it? It's because the file's broken internally. The player ignores any errors because it doesn't assume it's going to get anything right, because it's a variable frame rate. It just takes the frame information and plays it back. And on screen, it's supposed to be what its system said that frame was for what time and date stamp. That's supposed to be just imprinted into the screen. It's not part of the data file. The stuff that's done at the bottom in the player, ignore it. I would always ignore that. And again, I would take the raw video data and see if it all lines up. If it's very consistent, even if it's wrong by the same amount, I would take that as being consistent. And yeah, it is possible for all of them to get synchronized correctly. That's possible. I just don't ever believe it when I see it. But these days, maybe. I have saved other files as 3GP. It has no problem playing on either these files. I know that. I went through the same thing. That's because the file's broken. As I said, do you think the 300 frames per second had to have something to do with it? Yes, I said so. It's because it's not using a standard file format. It's using variable frame rate, and instead of putting the frame rate information at its base minimum or talking about it in the correct way, it assumes 300 frames per second because it can store files as 300 frames per second and then adjust it on the dynamic. That would be maximum frame rate. It's an irrelevant piece of information, but it does have it. But when you export it as 3GP, it actually comes out saying the correct variable frame rate and the statistic. And then it says 300 frames per second on some other tag on it. When converted to AVI, the pass elevator footage shows the encoded date and time, but it displayed on the right of the screen. If you do JPEG, and there is no such time and date. Okay. Then that would indicate strongly that when it's exporting as AVI, it's imprinting the date and timestamp. Okay, that's cool. But we'd have to get the raw 3GP thing, and I didn't see them doing that. And when they do the frame grabs, I'm assuming that you're right about that. I didn't bother trying that. That's a very useful point. And that may actually indicate it, which means it's not only doing compression, it's also excluding the top and bottom bars, which is where the time and date stamp is at the top of the bar. It's just taking the bottom image. Don't know. And maybe it's assuming you just want the frame grab and don't want the time and date stamp, which I think is stupid. But that's the program you're dealing with. That's not the video. I can do a tutorial on tearing the frames out, but this is going to be a lot more work than it's worth. Again, look at all the other videos, or a good sample of them. Just randomly pick them. There's a shit ton directory I already linked to. And just see if the time and date stamps are off by the right amount. If they're all off by the same amount, ignore the stupid counter in the player because it's wrong. And again, this is a file that's corrupted. Why are you trusting any of it? Okay. How does the media player then insert a time date stamp into AVI format? Maybe it was part of the video, but it's excluding the top and bottom parts because they're not considered part of the image. You'd have to ask them. You're the one who read this manual, right? Did it say that it would save that? How does the media player... Okay, yeah. Other cameras have the encoded timestamp on the left of the screen that show the exe file when playing back. When you convert it to AVI, the timestamp on the right disappears, but the encoded timestamps remain. JPEG or bitmap snapshots we can do from the exe file also shows encoding name, date, and time on the left. This is pass elevator camera and a couple of theirs. When a snapshot is taken, there are no encoding anything. Check for consistency among all of the other videos that you can export. Interrogate those files. Use that as a way to build up a library on how to do this. And then on this file, which is a corrupted file by definition, don't assume it's going to work. Only when you convert to AVI do we get to see the timestamp, but it's displayed on the right, not the left. One of them is the interpolated player trying to emulate a 24-hour period of time, and the other one's the actual file content. Check out my video on the such and such tutorial. Okay, that's nice. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And this was in the description. Maybe I'll look at it. Anyway, archive below for the comment if you want to go through it, and I'll include the video for his link in there as well. Bye.